The method for solving quadratic inequalities basically involves solving the equation This will give you the values where it's equal to 0. We want to mark the solutions. Now these are the solutions to the equation on a number line. And identify the intervals that this marks out. We want to find a test value in each interval. And plug into the original problem. Basically to see if it works or not. So if we look at this problem, x squared minus 7x plus 12 is greater than or equal to 0. First thing we want to do is solve the equation x squared minus 7x plus 12 equals 0. You can either use factoring or the formula. It does not matter how you get the answers. I'm going to go ahead and factor this because this one's pretty easy for me to factor. So I want factors of 12 that add up to 7, which would be 3 and 4. To get a negative 7 out of that, it's got to be a negative 3 and a negative 4. Set each of these equal to 0. So that's going to give me 3 and 4. Now, if I mark these on a number line, I got 3, I got 4. The intervals these mark out consist of the interval from negative infinity to 3. And since the original problem has the equals, I'm going to put a bracket on here. And then I've got the interval from 3 to 4. Again with brackets, because these could actually be solutions. And then I've got the interval from 4 to positive infinity. So here's my interval. Well, intervals. Let me find a test value. anything between negative infinity and 3, so here I could use a 2. Something between 3 and 4, so 3.5, which I could write as 7/2, which would probably be easier to plug in than 3.5. And then something bigger than 4 would be 5. And then run the test. So if I plug 2 into the original problem, I've got 2 squared minus 7 times 2 plus 12 is greater than or equal to 0. If I plug in 7/2, I'm going to have 7/2 squared minus 7 times 7/2 plus 12. Is that greater than or equal to 0? If I plug in a 5, I've got 5 squared minus 7 times 5 plus 12 is greater than or equal to 0. Now, I'm already at the point where I'm ready to plug in the test values as I've written them in and see if it works. So I'm going to erase all this, so I'll have a little bit more room to work here rather than going to a different screen. So you can see how I'm plugging them in. Okay, so this one, 2 squared minus 7 times 2 plus 12 is greater than or equal to 0. This is going to be 4 minus 14 plus 12 greater than or equal to 0. 4 and 12 would be 16. Minus 14 is greater than or equal to 0. 2 is greater than or equal to 0. This is true. So for my result, this one is true. 4 7/2 squared minus 7 times 7/2 plus 12 is greater than or equal to 0. This would give me 49/4 minus 49/2 plus 12 is greater than or equal to 0. So I've got 49/4 minus 4ths, minus, get a common denominator here. So if I double that, if I double 49, I'm going to get 98 plus 12 over 4 would be 48 over 4 is greater than or equal to 0. So I've got 49 plus 48 would be 80, 97. 97/4 minus 98/4, which is a negative 1/4, is not greater than or equal to 0. So this one came out false. Not because it was a fraction either. And then when I try my last one here, I'll get 25, or 5 squared is 25. Minus 7 times 5 is 35. Plus 12 is greater than or equal to 0. 25 and 12 would be 37. Minus 35, greater than or equal to 0. This is obviously going to be true. Since this is true and this is true, that means this interval and this interval are the solution. So my solution is negative infinity to 3 bracket union 4 to infinity, and graphed on a number line, that would be all the numbers below 3 and all the numbers above 4. Now, this is something that's got a lot of steps and it gives a lot of people a hard time. So let's take a look at another one. Let's solve 9 minus x squared is greater than or equal to 0. So first we want to solve 9 minus x squared is equal to 0. Since this is a difference of squares, I can factor it. Notice I'm not turning this around. A difference of squares is going to be the square root of the first one, plus and minus square root of the second one. So I've got 3 minus x is 0, 3 plus x is 0. This one will give me x is a negative 3. This one, I can actually move the x over and it'll give me 3 equals x. So my solutions to the equation are at negative 3 and 3. Since negative 3 and 3 can both be solutions, I'm just going to go ahead and put brackets here. So my intervals are negative infinity to negative 3. Always use a parenthesis on an infinity. Negative 3 to positive 3. Positive 3 to infinity. That's my intervals. My test values. I can use negative 4. I can use 0. Left off my parenthesis. I can use positive 4. So to run the test, I've got negative 4, 9 minus negative 4 squared. I'm looking for greater than or equal to 0. And then for 0, I've got 9 minus 0 squared is greater than or equal to 0. This is true, right? It's going to be 9 is greater than or equal to 0. And then I've got 9 minus 4 squared greater than or equal to 0. This is going to be false because 4 squared is 16. 9 minus 16 is not a positive. Greater than 0 is simply a way of saying positive. This is also 9 minus 16. So this is positive. This is false, sorry. So this is true only for the middle interval here. So it's going to be true from negative 3 to positive 3. Brackets, because it's got the equal part. So it's simply negative 3 to positive 3. Let's try one more. Let's solve x squared minus 2x minus 8 is less than 0. So we actually solve x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 0. And again, you can use the quadratic formula if you have trouble factoring this. Factors of 8 that subtract and give me 2 would be 4 and 2. To get a negative 2 out of this, I need a negative 4 and a positive 2. So I put x minus 4 is 0, x plus 2 is 0. This is x equals 4. This is x equals negative 2. This is going to give me negative 2 is the smaller one. From negative 2 to 4. This one does not have the equal part. So it's strictly parentheses. So I've got negative infinity to negative 2, negative 2 to 4, and 4 to infinity. For my test value, I could plug in negative 3, 0, 5. So I've got negative 3 squared minus 2 times negative 3 minus 8 is less than 0 is what I'm looking for. Come back up to the original. 0, that's going to be easy. 0 squared minus 2 times 0 minus 8 is less than 0. And 5 would be 5 squared minus 2 times 5 minus 8 is less than 0. And the result. Do I have to work it all the way out? Well, this one is negative 8 is less than 0. This is true. That generally means that the other two are going to be false, but you cannot guarantee it unless we'll talk later about how to tell for sure. This is going to be 9 plus 6 minus 8 is less than 0. That's 15 minus 8, so that's false. This one's going to be 25 minus 10 minus 8 is less than 0. That's also going to be false because it's 25 minus 18. So true is negative 2 to 4. So my solution is negative 2 to 4. Double check, definitely just parentheses because the equal's not there. The graph goes from negative 2 to 4. It's the numbers in between marked off with parentheses. So there's a lot of steps, but you need to actually go through, solve the equation, and then don't make an assumption. You need to check your intervals and make sure it's working. See what works and what doesn't.